Blake. That is who I have on the show today. And I said and led with his name first because this man, the word that comes to me, he is iconic. Yes, I use the word iconic with everything that he is doing in his life. And I'm considering him already a legend based on all of the legendary work that he is doing and how he shows up in this world to help and serve others. So, welcome to the Power Transformation Podcast, Coach Willie.
I am excited, and man, way to just like drop that and get me blushing. Everything right off the bat.
Indeed, indeed. And for those of you who are listening, you need to see his hair. His hair is like perfectly done and just nicely, like seriously, you took time to really do your hair just right. I pay attention to details such as that. And, you have this incredible gift of just taking time to truly pour into other people. But before we jump into exactly what you do and more of who you are, we're going to go ahead and just start off with a nice, fun, lighthearted icebreaker question that I always do with all of my guests so that we can get to know you a little bit more. And it's totally random. So this is your question, Coach Willie. And throughout the episode, I'll just call you Willie. But for now, I'll just say
Yeah,
Coach Willie.
please do.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay. So, Willie, this is your question. As we know, Artemis, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 or what, but Artemis went into space not too long ago to go around the moon. My question for you, Willie, is what would be your ideal sci-fi setting? It could be in a book, a movie, real life, sci-fi. If you could put yourself in any sci-fi setting, how would that look or be?
We would come with me
Okay.
through space as we jump into a wormhole. We'd go to a planet kind of like ours, but more of we call it like Triton. And at Triton, people are there, but it's more of like it's not, but there's more like magic per se, but not magic in a sense of like fiction type
Hmm.
magic, but magic in a sense of like things have gotten so good with technology to where like literally the way in which you think affects the environment in which you're in.
Ooh.
And so
Mm.
everybody like it's based off of a society and a community that you know how society is because of how its outward appearance is, because the
Mhm.
thoughts that we think control our environment. I think that would be like the setting of kind of like an Earth, but I'd call it
Yeah.
Triton. I'm thinking of one of Jupiter's moons that it has. I believe
Mhm.
Jupiter or Saturn has Triton, and yeah, that's where the setting would be.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And just as an extension question, would you have it in the Milky Way galaxy or this would be in a totally different galaxy?
I think it'd be fun to just be in a different galaxy because
Uh-huh.
just new things, new stars, and all that. And we can use like the whole wormhole thing to get over here
Exactly.
if we need to, right?
Exactly. Exactly. I love that. And I love the idea of taking thoughts and making magic in that thought sense, because that is how we take action. And you, Willie, based on thoughts that you've had throughout your life, you have really taken those thoughts, manifested them into action that has created tangible results for so many people. And before we talk about that, how would you answer this question? Who is Coach Willie Blake?
Coach Willie Blake, he's just a cool dude and a girl dad. Absolutely. I love my 4 girls. I love my wife, who I've been with for 9 years.
Mhm.
And I just love helping people out, bringing people out of the darkness into the light, helping people to figure out the systems that they need and the frameworks that they use that
Mhm.
work for them. And not just like this whole traditional thing or these one-way streets, you could say. And
Mhm.
a lot of people I help is neurodivergent people, especially dyslexic professionals, to be able to get that clarity, to gain more of that confidence, and hopefully a little bit more income on the side.
Indeed. And let's talk a little bit about that light into of taking that darkness, turning it into light. Explain to us how you do that exactly with the work that you do professionally.
Yeah. The biggest thing to start out with is a lot of people get stuck in their minds. Like
Mm,
it comes back to like we are talking about the thoughts. If we could really change the environment based on our thoughts,
mhm.
I think we'd be able to really understand more people and there'd be less judging in that because we realize that all of us have challenges. All of
Yeah.
us are going through something.
Hmm.
But in like the professional sense, your career sense, or even like family and relationship sense, when I talk with my clients and these other awesome individuals, first thing we go to is we talk about the possibility because a lot of them think of how society thinks of with neurodivergency
Hmm.
as it just sucks. It makes me slow, makes me behind. It's like this secret thing that I hate, but I'm not going to tell anybody because it's still a secret I keep inside.
Mm,
Because we keep that inside, keep it in the dark, we feel guilt, we feel shame, and that affects how we are out there performing with each other.
mhm.
Like there's a reason why we read scriptures in the light but watch pornography in the dark.
Mm, yeah.
It's that
Great
shame. That
contrast. Uh-huh.
that shame, that guilt comes from it. And a lot of it's from our beliefs. So if we start with the possibility that something can be more. And
Hmm.
there's usually two like types of people that come in. One is the possibility side of they're just getting into it. They haven't really done anything like rewards or accomplishment side of things. And so it's just like, let's just open this door to what can happen. And then
Hmm.
so that's where we start with. But the ones who are already out there, like who are already performing and actually achieving things, what we do with them is just bring all those ideas down and figure out, well, what's the next thing you want to do?
Wow.
Not your
Indeed.
coworkers, not your boss, not anything else, but like what's the thing that you want to do? And let's build a system around that so that you can get it without having to worry about everybody else's systems that are out there.
Mhm. So let me ask you that before we dive more into your own personal journey and story, because everything you said is so loaded and powerful, and I don't want us to miss anything. But you used the term early on that some people, like me, as well as others, may actually know it, and then others may have heard it, but aren't exactly sure what it means. And then some altogether may say, what was that word he said? And it's the term neurodivergent or neurodivergency. Coach Willie, in the most simplistic layman's terms, what exactly does that mean and what does it look like?
The word neurodivergency simply means I haven't looked at like what the Greek or Latin is, but if I
That's
think of
okay.
neuro,
Hmm.
I think of the brain, and
Hmm.
then divergency just means different. So it's our brain is different than what society thinks of as average. So
Hmm.
usually under that umbrella, you have things of dyslexia, which is difficulty with reading. You have ADHD, which just means that your focus is every which way, right?
Hmm.
You have OCD, where it's just like organization, things in its certain place. And if it's off, it like kind of gets us going. And autism, and like there's so many more that go into it. So
Hmm.
neurodivergency, that is usually paired with neurotypical, where if the simplest things, you have the average people that society
Hmm.
puts in, and then you have the different people, not necessarily bad, especially in my opinion, but that's the difference of the brain's wired. It takes us longer to process things, we see things in a different way, and so it's just that different side.
Got you. And thank you for breaking it down just like that, because there are people who are classified or labeled as one of those subcategories and may not have even known that it falls under that type of umbrella. But your journey is quite remarkable because here you are doing work in this area of neurodivergency, amongst other things. But you, Willie, have an incredible journey and a story. And it's something that you shared with me about what happened to you when you were in first grade. So, approximately 6 years old. So, paint a picture for us as to what was that initial spark that first led you to doing this work based on your own experience.
Yes. I'm thinking of two different ones. Can you give
Okay.
one of them is when I got diagnosed, and another one is
You
something that
can talk
happened at the
about both of
playground.
them. Take it
Both of them?
either way that you want. This is your interview and your perspective. I'm just here to steer the ship, but you just take it any way that you want.
Yeah, for sure. I'll do.
Hmm.
Yeah, we'll do both because they meld
Sure.
together really well.
Yeah.
The the first thing around that 6 or 7 years old was being diagnosed with dyslexia, and so I
Mm.
I remember going with my class to this extra room, and one by one they'd filter us in. And when it was my turn, I walked up to this desk, and
Hmm.
this wonderful lady behind the desk handed me this paper and said, "Hey, will you read this for me?" And I'm like, "Sure." I stumbled over those words so bad. It was like a couple paragraphs long, no pictures. This wasn't a picture book. We're talking like good
Uh-huh.
New York Times type thing, right? And I stumbled. It took me forever to sound out the big words. And at
Wow.
the end, I didn't know what it was. And they're just like, "Awesome, you can go ahead and go." But that was like the first step into the school being like, "Hey, your kid might have a reading difficulty. You should potentially go check it out." And so my parents were like, "Yeah, we can do that." And so they got me to a third party person and got diagnosed with dyslexia, which for me specifically struggled a lot with reading, writing, and speaking specifically.
Hmm.
Um, and so that mixed with the other thing in first grade, which was I was running around the playground just playing with kids, and it was my turn. We're playing tag, and then there's this one girl in the class who I thought was pretty cute. And as a first grader, you're just like, "Yeah, we're just playing tag." So I
Uh,
ran after her, and she jumped up onto the playground. And as she did, I tripped over one of the wood chips, and my hand was still out, and I swiped down and accidentally pulled down her pants.
oh my goodness. Oh
And so, like,
wow.
you can imagine the embarrassment. She pulled them up, and she
Exactly.
got her friend, and she ran inside to go tell the teacher.
Oh.
I'm sitting there in those wood chips being like, "I didn't do anything wrong. It was a complete
Hmm.
accident. Like, I accidentally tripped. I'm absolutely sorry it happened.
Hmm.
I wouldn't want that to happen to me." A few minutes go by, teacher comes out,
Hmm.
and they say, "Willie, did you pull down her pants?" And I look up at them and said, "Yeah." And without being able to explain even more, the teacher said, "Okay, you lose recess for the rest of the week. Come inside with us."
Oh. Mm.
And so that was like one of the first moments of, why can't I share what I was thinking and like what
Hmm.
actually happened? Kind of like that prejudgment. And
Exactly.
and
Oh.
that actually mixes with a fourth grade experience of, if any of the parents who are listening, they have like programs they do where the whole grade stands up there and they sing a couple songs, and the parents are
Mhm.
like, "Yeah," and the back ones are standing up, and then there's that one parent in the middle that stands up to get their kid, and everyone gets mad at them. Anyway,
Oh.
so we were practicing, and then after the song ended, the fourth grade teacher said, "Okay, who wants to sing one last time?" I look up at the clock, and it's a minute before the bell rings. And I know
Mhm.
for myself, we still have to walk back to class because we're in the gym. We still have to get our backpacks, put everything away, and make it to the bus all in a short amount of time, because if that bus leaves, well, then I want to call my mom, and I don't want to call
Yeah.
my mom.
Hmm.
So what I think everyone else is going to say, I say with them. I say no, but everyone else said yes.
Oh.
And so the teacher stares at me, and all the other students stare at me, and I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Yes." And I'm like, "No." And so the teacher pointed at me and said, "You come down and sit next to me till we're done."
Oh no. So either way, you still had to wait.
Either way, I still had to wait. So I
Oh,
came up and sat next to her. And if you were like, remember those those dunce caps that they had in the olden days in
yeah.
school? That's how I felt. Felt stupid.
Oh no. And so basically everybody else in the class sang and did this closing part and you had to sit by the teacher.
Yeah, I had to sit by the teacher. It felt like everyone was laughing at me, but no, they
Exactly.
weren't. They were just singing a song, right? And
Wow.
like, I look back at that memory and think, did I hear that question right of what the
Hmm.
teacher said? Because I had to justify to myself. And I remember I had to, that the thoughts that were going through my mind was, I think I'm going to wait a little bit before I start
Hmm.
answering things, because if I answer them right away, I make more mistakes.
Wow.
And so that mixed with the judgment from the first grade, mixed with being diagnosed with dyslexia, which has its own things of then feeling slow because in fifth grade you have a first grade reading level, you're feeling behind, you're working twice as hard as everybody
Mhm.
else. All that together, you can just imagine that 6, 7, 8-year-old kid then being like, well, nobody's going to listen to me. I'm just going to stay quiet. And that
Wow.
curious, adventurous kid then turned into the shy one who was always observing, who was always reserved, and kind of stupid because, in a lot of
Mm.
ways, the writing and the reading, and whenever he had to stand up in class to speak, man, he was slow.
Mm.
He must be a
But
broken kid.
I'm glad that you actually brought it up. I know that when we've talked in the past, you didn't bring up that story about fourth grade. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought it up because it gets you to think about, yes, how a child could be processing, but also as an adult, that sometimes we give responses, but we don't always explain why we say something or what's our rationale for it. And I think that if we took time for that pause to be intentional to seek to understand what a difference it could very well make. And so here you are navigating this label and this diagnosis of dyslexia. And I think I shared with you, my mom has dyslexia. She's in her 70s now, but that's why she became a special education teacher because, and I will preface this for anybody who is Catholic out there. I'm not starting an argument with anybody who's Catholic, but my mom grew up Catholic and she went to Catholic schools. And she said nuns back then in the 60s were very strict, very stern. Of course, some were kind and sweet and gentle, but a lot of them weren't. And they didn't have a lot of the knowledge that we do now of children that are diagnosed differently. So, although my mother found out later on she was dyslexic, they thought she could have very well been, and I'm going to use an outdated term, y'all, that is not politically correct now, but I'm using it for the time then. They had thought she was more so mentally retarded, which of course we call now intellectually disabled. But that's what they thought she was based on the fact she got words confused and she felt a bit put off. And the reason for me sharing this, Willie, is as a child, how did you navigate through being diagnosed with dyslexia, yet still, in a sense, finding ways to achieve and succeed without being burdened by this label?
As a kid, I don't think I did
Wow.
because it
Mm,
wasn't really until about halfway through college to where I started to have this whole mind, like these thoughts and this mindset that I have now.
interesting.
As a kid, it was the always trying to catch up. It was the being the last one. The sixth grade that we had at the end of each day had to write a paragraph
Uh-huh.
about what we learned during the day, and the teacher would take it. I was always
Exit
the last
tickets.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
always the last one because
Oh,
just of how it was. And so I was I was not the way if you meet me today, I'm very social. I'm very personable. I just love people. They're awesome. I love talking to them. I was not that as a kid. Man, I
mm,
wasn't even like that in high school because
mm,
over and over again, my the things that are going in my mind was I'm just gonna stay back, just gonna hold reserve, and this I'm gonna put up this filter so that I don't offend any other people. I'm gonna put up this mask that has a smile on its face so that other people don't know that I'm hurt.
mm,
And because I had such a big heart, I'm going to help as many people as I can if they ask for it.
mm,
But if they ask me, they're just like, "Hey, Willie, how can I help you?" Oh, no, no, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much. Thank
mm,
you so much for offering it to me because I could take the hits. I had already tried to just survive. And so taking one more hit, one more blow, one more serving other person and not focused on me, I can take on that burden
mhm,
because it's easier for me to take on more burdens than it is to let other people help.
Wow. Wow. That is, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds like it could have been incredibly stressful to have to carry such a load at a young
Yeah.
age.
Yeah, like incredibly. And there we had school programs. I think it's the 504 plan to
Uh-huh,
where
yeah.
literally I'd
I had one of
come,
those and I
yeah,
had an IEP also, yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah, to where I'd be able to get extra help, get the notes from
Yeah.
the teachers, be able to take extra time on tests. But I didn't want to do that because then I'd stand out. Going up to a teacher when the test is going on and be like, "Hey, can I have some extra time on this test?" Where the room
Oh,
is dead silent, right? Because everyone else is taking the test. I didn't want to be that. So it's either I can hurt potentially my grades and hurt whatever outcome happens, but that's just me, or I could get help. And unfortunately, and sadly, I went towards the way of I'll just be a burden for myself.
yeah. And as a former teacher, one who taught English and Spanish, mainly English, and then led teachers and teams, it breaks my heart here. I'm sitting here like, gosh, I wish I was Willie's teacher, or because I've had kids like you when I did teach, and even hearing about you having that uh trepidation or that slight fear of wanting to go up during a test and say, hey, can I have my extended time? That was really on the teacher to be very subtle and discreet about it and to incorporate it in. That burden should not have been placed on you. And so it's very interesting hearing who you are now versus then, and that catalyst or that shift transformed you in the middle of college. Take us to that moment or that buildup that started to redefine, Willie, who you are.
Yes. Two instances that happened at that point.
Hmm.
First one was more serious, and then the second one was more now let's go forward with it. So the first one, it was back beginning year of 2018.
Hmm.
And at that time, I was in the business school of my university, and I got a text from my mom, and she told me that one of my cousins took their life that morning.
Hmm. I'm sorry to hear that. Wow.
Thank you. And not only uh, just under a week later, I got another text from my mom, and I was in about that same spot in the business school, and I
Hmm.
got another text saying that one of my childhood friends also took his life.
Oh, wow, Willie.
And anyone who's listening, you absolutely know that when someone you care
Mm.
about takes their life and you hear about it, you remember in very vivid details about
Mhm.
like where you were at, who you were around, and what was happening. And so one thing happened because of that, which was after I got that second text. I got my backpack, got a little post-it note out, and I wrote something that said, it was along the lines of this: if I can help it, I'm never going to have people feel
Mm.
like that again.
Yeah, that's that's deep. Hmm.
And so I wrote specifically like, I'm never going to make my cousins feel like that again. And
Hmm.
because love my cousins, but I didn't, I have a big family. And my parents have big families. So like got a lot of cousins. I don't, I know the names of them, but I don't know them personally. But that was the day
Uh-huh.
where it's just like, I'm going to make sure I know their names and that and what they're doing. But then also
Hmm.
it's attributed to now instead of just like going through the motions, figuring like getting the grades, making sure I get my degree and everything, it's just like everything I do is going to lead with my heart. I'm going to make sure that everybody knows that they are cared for in this world.
What is the importance of that, of making sure people are cared for?
Man, if people aren't cared for, why the heck do we got so many humans on this planet?
Yeah.
Right?
Hmm.
Like we got AI coming up
Hmm.
and people using AI for stuff. And I think it's actually great for especially neurodivergent people
Hmm.
because the ones who struggle with reading and writing quite a bit, it's taking the weakness out and then we're able to focus more on our strengths.
Uh-huh.
So it's like AI is doing such great things, but it's also taking out the the talking. Like how many of us actually know our neighbors? And not maybe not even just their names, but like what they're doing.
Only
Not
a
many people.
handful. Yeah, only
Yeah.
a handful. I'm grateful that, for example, my house in DC, that neighborhood has changed a lot, but I'm grateful that my sister and I still know some of the people, but it's not like how it used to be. And then, in my hometown area, based on the fact that my parents live in a seniors community, that's a little different because they're from that era where people knew each other. So, of course, they do. But you're right. The average person really doesn't know their closest neighbors at times. Wow.
Yeah. And if they do, they know them because their dog's barking and they went over to have their dog be quiet, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just the
Yeah.
world we live in. And so
Seriously. Wow.
it's so important, so important. Even just in a family setting. Imagine not having a relationship with your spouse.
Mm.
That's just a roommate. Imagine not
Mm.
having a relationship with your kids. Like how they're gonna grow up and be in the future. That's gonna be affected a lot. So with everybody in the world, like connection is huge.
It
It's needed,
is.
very much needed.
And I want to touch on also the fact that when you had those two tragedies in that same week, that's a lot to really carry. I mean, that's heavy and that's intense. It's hard enough when you lose two loved ones in a year, but to lose them in the same week, that's a heavy load to carry. But also something else that has really reshaped and redefined who you are. And I see this from my perspective as being a daddy's girl myself is that the fact that you are a husband and the father of four daughters. And talk to us, Willie, about, you going from this shy guy in childhood of not wanting to speak up to being a whole husband and a whole father, carrying this next generation and raising them in a particular way. How do you then, almost in a way, start to put on this hero cape of your identity in your life through even those roles, as well as with how you serve your clients?
Ooh, great questions. Man, just any girl dads out there know that just like there's this protective inner beast in us that's just like
Hmm.
we're gonna protect our baby girls. We're gonna make sure that they're covered and we're gonna raise them right. We're not gonna
Hmm.
treat them as harsh as our sons because the sons, which just like you got to get a little tough. We might throw the ball and bounce it off your head a couple of times to like toughen up the noggin. But for our princess girls, we're going to carry them up to bed. We're going to make sure everything's good with them. And of course, we're going to teach them how they should be treated, right? We're not
Hmm.
just going to let them be passenger princesses. We're going to be like, they know how to drive, but if they got a good husband, then they know how to also be a passenger princess type
Hmm.
thing. So the it ties into actually the second thing that happened in college, which I know my numbers were kind of off there. The
It's
second thing
okay.
was came across this statistic and it said 95% of CEOs read 50 or more books a year. And at the time I was switching from my accounting degree to business and I thought being a CEO, I think that'd be pretty cool. Being a business owner, like people are out
Hmm.
there making some serious money from it. So let's try that. Ain't no way I'm reading 50 books. Especially maybe I read an average of one before that. No way I'm doing 50. But we'll start small. One book a month, 12 books in a year. That didn't seem too impossible. So I got a little note card, wrote 1 through 12, went to my bookshelf, grabbed the smallest self-help book I had, a
The
purple book
smallest.
called Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and started reading chapter 1. And from there, like it went from that one book to a couple, then to a dozen and a couple dozen, and eventually up to that 50 mark. And during that time was when I started to, I don't know if find myself was the right
Hmm.
phrase, because I was always myself. It was just hidden under everything else.
Yeah.
So it was like taking off all those leaves of anxiety and stress, of traumas, of going through stuff as I was taking other people's experiences, trying
Yeah.
out their exercises, trying out their activities, and really just starting to implement it in my life. And I got more confident. And I learned that dyslexia wasn't just this thing that everyone else thought as difficulty with reading, always behind, but like our creativity, ability to recognize patterns and think about outside the box with problem solving, as well as our ability to be sympathetic and empathetic because we
Hmm.
know what it's like to go through so much. Like there's so many great things that come with it. At the end of the day, you just get to choose, do I focus on what everyone else is, or can I use it and learn how to get trained in seeing it as an advantage?
Hmm.
And so that, as I started to learn about that, was when around the time that I had my first girl, and just that toughness. The men will understand this.
Yeah.
The toughness that you had to be before, and the toughness that you are when you're like sitting on those steps with that shotgun when your daughter gets that first date. It gets broken down when you see her the first time.
Hmm. And you even shared with me with your first child, something happened that also had to really level you up in a sense because you had to be there for your wife and your child. Share about that.
Yes. So come back to when we're about to have the baby.
Uh-huh.
Doctors were in their nurses and we're about to have her. And the doctor says, "Hey, can you hit that red button on the wall?"
Oh,
I said, "Sure." I,
yeah.
I didn't know what was going on. So I went and clicked the red button. Nothing happened. A couple seconds later, nothing happened. But then all of a sudden, the door bursted open and about 6 or 7 nurses started to rush in. And they were doing all their stuff. Doctor was talking real quick. And I'm just like, uh,
Yeah,
what's going
like,
on? Like,
okay.
everything
Uh-huh.
okay? And so one of the nurses came up and told me, "Hey, looks like that the baby's having a hard time breathing, and that
Mm.
I think the term's breached or something,
Mm-hmm.
like where either their shoulders couldn't
Breaches
get
with
in."
feet first. That's a breech birth is
Maybe
when
that was
your
a
feet come
different
out.
kid with breach, but it was like
Okay.
the umbilical cord was like around her neck or
Oh
something. It's like
yeah, uh-huh.
hard time
Ooh.
breathing, basically what it came down to. So what we need you to do is get into these scrubs, and we're gonna rush your wife over to where we do the C-sections. Just need to get the baby out. And so put these on and you can come and stand next to
Wow.
her. I'm like, okay, sounds that sounds fine. So I put them on and the nurse walks me down. And once we get there, another nurse comes out the door, closing it, and says that, "Hey, looks like this is a little bit worse than we thought.
Mm.
Mom and baby are fine, just losing oxygen. So and mom's having a little bit of complexities. So what we need you to do is to go back into the room, and we'll let you know when everything what happens happens."
Wow.
So walk back to the and I'm sure they use different words because they're experts in what they do.
Of course, yeah.
Walk back to the room with the nurse, and as I walked in, I remember taking those few steps, and then the door slamming behind me.
Mm.
It was just me alone in that room.
Wow.
Anybody else? I've talked to several people about this who have had similar experiences. Anybody else would have just panicked, been like, "Is my wife okay? Is my kid okay? Like, what in the world's going on?" But in the strangest way possible, I felt so at peace
Ooh. Wow.
because looking back, I'm like, why was I so at peace? Like literally so at peace to where I'm just like, okay, everything's fine. Everything's going to go well. So I went over and started to eat my wife's cold lunch that she didn't want. Like that's how that's how calm I was
Stop
about the whole
taking her
thing.
food, Willie. That was it.
No, it was all right. She didn't want it. It was cold at
Yeah.
that point. And I thought back to that moment, and I had so much trust that the doctor knew what he was doing,
Uh-huh.
that the nurses knew what they were doing, but more importantly, that God knew what was happening.
That's right.
And so no matter what happened, everything was going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it might take a while for it to be okay, everything is going to be okay.
Yeah.
13 minutes later, a nurse came in and she said, "Hey, baby and mom are doing just fine.
Wow.
We put the mom under. She's going to be out of it for a little bit. The baby with the complications, we took her to NICU. If you would like, I can take you to the NICU right now to sit there." Of course, I
Of
went,
course, yes.
but that
Mm,
peaceful feeling still remained. I'm like, I knew
wow.
once that door closed that my wife and
Mm,
kid were still going to be okay.
wow. Wow, Willie. That is absolutely a miracle and such a blessing that things worked out and that subsequently you had three more girls. And you know, you had to, even in that moment, although you had the peace, I think that you did something that is a lesson for others, is that although the nurses and the doctors were there to do their job, you had to almost, in a sense, surrender or rather transfer a piece of trust over to them and not put all of the trust in yourself to make things right because you couldn't do anything in that moment except be present. And I think this is an important lesson, is that sometimes we as humans can carry so much of the weight of the world on our shoulders that we don't learn how to trust other people with tasks, responsibilities, things that can help make our life easier. And when you're in this neurodivergent community, I shared with you, I'm diagnosed with ADHD, is that oftentimes, whether it's being dyslexic, having autism, ADHD, OCD, whatever, is that trust factor becomes a huge thing because we want to do it ourselves. We want to prove that we can do this. We're just as normal as everybody else. How have you learned on this journey, Willie, whether it's in your personal life or as an entrepreneur? How have you learned how to transfer trust into others so that it can help to support you with just your everyday tasks?
That hospital one was probably the first major one, at least that I
Hmm.
remember, the earliest one. But from that day, just that the the phrase of releasing of trust, like
Yeah.
that looked like letting my wife do some of the projects around the house. That
Uh-huh.
was knowing that if I put my kid on the bed, she wasn't going to roll off.
Mm.
Strangely enough, right? It was the I was working produce at Walmart at the time, and it was trusting that the department was going to be up and running because we got there at 4 a.m. to start
Hmm.
stacking so that by the time 8 a.m. came around and the store manager and everyone started walking around, that all the stuff would be up and ready and going. And I took
Yes.
a lot of that burden because even though I wasn't department head, the store manager and their boss saw me as one just because of like how, because I was basically like two people in one of the
Uh-huh.
work that I did. And I was grateful for it that they saw me as that leader person. But like that ability to still have, it's it's the two different circles. It's the circle of influence and then the circle of
Mhm.
concern that we have. We can be
Hmm.
concerned about so many things, but we only can control what we can control, which is in that circle of influence. And it's usually a smaller circle.
Mm-hmm.
And if we
Hmm.
focus more on the things that we can do in that circle of influence, in the circle in which we can actually take out the trash or actually do the projects at work or stack those apples in the produce department, well, then we can start to alleviate the burden of, okay, I know that other people are over here stocking the vegetables. And the
Uh-huh.
example of Walmart just keeps popping up. Someone's stacking the oranges and the potatoes, and the other one's focusing on the strawberries and the other berries that are going on. And it's just like, I'm going to do my job the best that I can here.
Yeah.
And he goes, the President Reagan, he says like trust but verify. So I was
Mhm.
still like looking around to make sure things are going on, but they did them. And
Wow.
and you just it's the reps of trust, and
Yeah.
people don't talk about that. It's the reps of trust. Like, you don't just trust someone just right off the bat, but it's the more that you are able to put trust into people, then you start trusting even more,
Mm.
and that trusting builds confidence, and then that trust that eventually leads to being able to be a leader, not just a boss.
Yeah.
So in
Oh,
that leadership,
yes.
you like share, you start
There's
to
a
share
difference.
even more trust and to delegate. Then
Yeah.
people help you to be able to either delegate, automate, or eliminate.
Hmm.
And just like it's just the reps that you put in. So from that one moment on and on to like where now me and my clients are talking, it's just like I have what I have to share. I have frameworks that we've built together. Now I put the trust in you to, once we get off the call, to then go and actually do the plan. And I
Mm.
trust them because I know they
Yeah.
can do it. And if something happens, something happens. It doesn't mean I
Hmm.
distrust them. It just means, okay, what is it that occurred that made it so you didn't do the thing we talked about? Okay, now let's do that thing. Let's see like what we can
Hmm.
do next. So
Wow. Yeah, and I think that the way that you described it shows it's a process and it doesn't happen overnight. But once you take that first step, then it builds and that trust factor builds. And I have found that your trust factor even trickles over into something that you haven't brought up about yourself. But I'm going to, not only
okay.
are you this amazing coach helping people in this way, but you are a phenomenal podcaster yourself. And you have such an incredible podcast where you highlight all types of people. And I know that we're starting to come to a close here, but I want people to really be not only inspired by the work that you've done, but to actually take action to be those change makers in the world, just as you are. Tell us, Willie, a bit about the extension of your brand into this podcast. And what is the purpose and the point of your show? What do you want people to glean from it? And how can we follow or learn more about you in general?
Yes. So I'm going to go from back to front with it
Sure.
because it just seems like a really nice flow.
Mhm.
So for people to be able to find it and get with me, my website's the best place,
Mhm.
coachwillieblake.com, and they'll be able to find the links there. The podcast specifically is called Light Beyond Limits. And we talk about the stories and the breakthroughs that people have had with their limitations and the
Mhm.
lessons they learned from it. And the whole thing of why the podcast is there, because I love the examples of people just like yourself. You were on the
Mhm.
podcast of yourself of who have had challenges, who go through
Mhm.
things just like everybody else. And they turn it into something better. They actually still like they make something in this world be good.
Mhm.
And I love finding people like that. And I love talking about that because there's this phrase that we mentioned beforehand that we haven't talked about yet, but I'm absolutely going to bring up now, which is talking about the hero and the villain.
Mhm.
Because the hero and the villain both have pain. But the villain says, I got hurt, and so I'm going to hurt other people. The hero on the other side says, I got hurt. So now I'm going to do what I can to make sure other people don't get hurt. And there are moments in our lives to where we might play more of the hero
Mhm.
and we might play more of the villain. And maybe for you who are listening, you might have been playing the villain for a really long time. And it seems like that little person in the back of your head keeps talking to you of, I can't do this. I can't do that. This dream that I had, I'm going to give it up for that paycheck that I have at my normal job because
Mhm.
right now I'm scared. I'm worried. I'm anxious. But the message I'd share with that is it's never too late to go from being that villain into being a
Mhm.
hero in your own life.
Indeed. Indeed. And in connection with that villain and hero, you know, it's a strategic choice that we make to choose to become our own hero. And so, Willie, my question for you is, how are the choices you're making today? How does that continue to shape and build and grow the hero within yourself?
Mm. What a great question. I love that. Everything that I do focuses around my one word why, which is the why that people have, but squished down into a single word. And for me, it's light,
Mm,
Light. And at the beginning, it was simply the opposite of darkness. I didn't like people in the darkness. And the other synonyms for that is anxiety, stress, obstacles, the challenges,
mhm.
everything, all the negative stuff we talked about and mentioned. I wanted people to be in the light. I want to see that sparkle in their eye, see that like the fire and the passion that they have, be
Yeah.
able to have them have that kid smile on their face that they've lost simply because we have to be adulting in this world. Like all that came into it. And it's only been recently to where I'm just like, I think it'd be cool to not cool. It's just like having an acronym for it to help
Hmm.
explain it better is beneficial to me and then maybe to other people. And the acronym for
Hmm.
light is love, inspire, gratitude, hope, and time.
Mm,
Because truly, all my actions go around those. Because because the way in which I act, I want others to feel love. And I also want to love myself because I've been hurting
mhm.
for a long time. I don't need to be doing that anymore. Self
Yeah,
love's important to
it really
inspire.
is.
I want to inspire. We humans are built to serve. So the more that we're able to go out there and help other people and inspire them by our example, let it be so.